everyone, welcome back to 100 Blocks in 2025. Today's project is really fun. We're going to escape templates and sew some stuff together, cut it back out, make a block. It's going to be great, all from my brain. So let's see what we're going to work on today. Okay, here is our block. It is number 30 in the Farmer's Wife book. On page 157, it's called End of Day. I'm so glad that I figured out the math on this one, not at the end of the day, but early. So here is our alternating block. It looks difficult. It's not difficult, but it does pose a couple of challenges. So if you see here, as per usual with the Farmer's Wife, we have some templates. And these are triangles with bias and also these unknown lengths here that we need in order to create these angles. Now we can measure out the parts that we need. We can figure out the bias and cut with our angle, but I thought I'd try to do something that's a little bit more fun. And what I saw was a definite pattern in this block, but it comes with some hazards. So I thought I would show you. And what I've got is some mix and match of blocks that I did with this. So the first thing that I noticed is that it looks to me like if we sewed two rectangles on top of one another, like this, and cut them at an angle, we would get this look. And we would get an angle. Let me see if I can show you with my little triangle here. If I cut them at an angle like this, I would get a long piece and a short piece, which would fit in right here. And from the other side, a long in a short piece, which would be an opposite colorway. All right. Now the hazards of this is that if you look at this drawing, if I wanted to make this block exactly as is, I would need a light on the bottom, a dark on the top, and I need 4 of them because they spin around the block, right? They are all cut in this angle. And just to make it easier, if we say the yellow is the light, then in order to get my light on the bottom, dark on the top, oh, for Pete's sake, Penny, figure it out. Can't find what I'm looking for. There it is, right there. So if I were to cut like this, I am going to get this light rectangle with a point on the bottom and my dark at the top. But I need 4 of those in order to spin that. And then in order to do the opposite, which is dark on the bottom and light on the top, if I turned it this way, so that would be the other side of the triangle at that angle, I would get light on the top and dark on the bottom, but it would be in the wrong angle. So in theory then, I would need 4 more of these rectangles, these 2 rectangle squares, in order to cut the other side. And then I would have 2 sides that were opposite of that. So you could do that if you made 4 of these and you cut them in this direction, okay? You would get half 4 of the angles for one side, but you would not get them for the other side. So you would need 4 more blocks, the same, that are cut at this angle diagonally, so the opposite angle, to get the other 4 sides, but then you'd have the other half. So if you were to take, right, and make 4 of these rectangles and cut them one way, you would have this side angle for 2 different blocks, and then of course you could make 4 more and you'd have that side angle for the opposite 2 different blocks. And let me see if I can explain to you how that works. The first thing is, in order to create the size that we need, we have to have rectangles. We have to know what size rectangle. So it is 2 1/4 tall by 4 inches wide. Those are the rectangle sizes that we need. So, and then I would sew them together in a seam and I'd have a unit that looks like this that I would need to cut. So let me set this one aside for a second and let me show you. I attempted to make a 2-color version of this using that same method. So let's do this. So I have dark on the bottom, light on the top. Dark on the bottom, light on the top. Because I want to make sure that I show you exactly what you would need. Okay? There we go. So on this stack, I have 2 units here that I cut at this angle. And I have 2 units that I cut in the opposite angle. So now let me try to build the block as it's shown here. Okay, so the first thing I need is light on the bottom, dark on the top. So that's this right here. And I would put that, oops, I would put that unit here. Same as here. And then I need light on the top, dark on the bottom. Well, here's light on the top, dark on the bottom. But if I go to put this together, I'm only getting the other half of that block. I'm not getting the angle that I need. So I would need this one in order to complete that unit. Make sense? All right. So now I have enough pieces to finish the block, right? Because I have all of the 8 pieces to make a unit. But this is what happens. So I now have this angle and this angle. I have half of the block done, this part right here. Now I have these. So in order to make the other 2, I have to put these guys together, right? Oh, well, they're light and dark, right? So they look like they're going to work, except in order to get this block done, I have to turn them this way. And then this way. Okay, everybody see the problem? The whole design is messed up here because these are not opposite of what they need to be. So in order to make this block, I actually need to cut parts for 2 quilts because it's only using half of the units that were cut in this direction and half of the units cut in the other direction. Hopefully that makes sense. So if I do 4 more rectangle units like this and cut them exactly the same way, I would be able to make 2 of these blocks because I'd have enough of each angle. They would just be colored backwards with each other. Now what I did is I went ahead and made a 4-color block. And this is what helped me get where I needed to be. So I'm just going to put these units up here for a second so I can explain a little bit better exactly how come the 4-color works and the 2-color doesn't. Because, I mean, it works. You just need more pieces, okay? So for this unit, I have 2 that are yellow and green. And I'm using this so they're the same rectangles, but I've added 2 different. So these are 4 colors. So now I'm going to take, let's say I were to take these. Let's opposite this. So whatever you do, they have to be sort of opposite one another. Right? I don't know if I want to do them both this way and both that way. I think I do. Okay, it doesn't really matter. We're going to mix them up. So now I'm going to take 4 colors and I'm going to mix them up. Okay? So I'm going to take my rectangle, this stack of rectangles, and I'm going to cut them corner to corner. Just going to use my little corner ruler here. So I'm going to go corner to corner in this direction. All right. So these are now cut exactly the same way. I'm going to take these blocks and cut them the opposite way, okay? So I'm going to take my triangle here and turn it in this direction, corner to corner, and cut them opposite. Both the same, but opposite. So now they're both cut. Both cut in my little stacks. So now when I put them together, I know I'm going to need my light at the top, dark at the bottom, or dark at the top, light at the bottom. So I need that to go together. And then I need a light at the top, dark at the bottom. And I guess you have to kind of figure out which one you want to be light and dark. But let's just say we're doing this way. So there are 2 units. And now when I go to put these together, I have 2 units. Okay? So now these 2 units are opposite. this is how we're going to do it. I'm going to take these units and turn them this way. See how they're opposite? And these units, turn them this way. And now I have finished the design of the block, okay? So I get exactly the look I'm looking for, which is these cross units here at the top, and I get these two angles coming through to create the same that's in this block. So the look of it is exactly what it needs to be. It's just 4 angles. So you have a choice with this quilt. You can cut enough pieces, which in this case you will need 8 rectangles. So what I've done here is done 4 of these and 4 of these. You would need 8 of each, and you would cut 4 in one direction and 4 in the other direction, and you'd be able to make this block as shown. Or you can cut 2 rectangles of this, 2 rectangles of this, and then 2 rectangles of 2 other prints, and you can mix and match them like this. And I have finished the block here as a teal, so you can see how that works. So what I've done is I've taken 2 1/4 by 4 inch rectangles, basically 2 of 4 different colors, 2 rectangles of 4 different colors. I've chosen to sew them together into pairs, taken the pairs and cut one of the pairs of units in one direction and the other pair of units in the other direction, and mixed them all up to make one block. And now I have that block. And because I have these, and these are not working in that direction, I can actually pull from here the things I need, and I can mix and match them with the ones that are here. All right, after much turning, I have triumphed, and I'm able to put these together so that that center section looks the same. So there we go. There's my finished block. So now what I need to do is I need to stitch each of these units together. And this one, these obviously are complete opposites of one another, but they work. I can't manipulate them any differently in here. I don't think. It's because I mixed up the colors here, and that's what I'm gonna get. If you do 4 colors, it just is a matter of cutting them in 2 different angles. You can put them back together. So it's kind of fun. So now we're going to get to the next part, which is we have to sew these guys together. And, you know, they're very confusing right now. So I think I'm going to pick it up part by part, and I'm going to show you how I went about putting it together, right? So let me just pick up 2 blocks together to sew, and we'll go sew those on the sewing machine. I'll show you exactly how I put them together. So we're just going to lay these guys together just like so. We're going to sew down the bias right there. And if you press them in opposite directions, you're going to get that little meaty spot right there, which is great. They'll nest in the corner. And once you get them put together, then we're going to trim them to the size that we need with our Clearly Perfect slotted trimmer, which is why this guy is sitting right here. So let me go nest these 2 together, sew them in 1/4 inch, and I'll show you exactly how we're going to put them together. All right, so I have sewn very carefully. You can see I've nested and I've sewn my 1/4 inch seam allowance right there. And when I open it up, you can see that the 2 triangles have met together right here at the corner point, but I'm not going to press them open just yet because I'm going to treat it like a half square triangle. So what I'm going to do is take my Clearly Perfect slotted trimmer, lay it right down so that my seam allowance is on the 3.5 inch mark, because we need to finish these blocks at 6.5, so each unit has to be 3.5. So I have laid this down right there on the triangle. I'm going to trim the sides of the unit because we've oversized them just a little bit, and I'm going to cut the little dog ears off. Okay, and now I'm going to go open up this unit so that it's perfectly sized to go into our block. And I'm going to repeat that process for all 4 units in the block So I'll go do that now, and then once we get those pressed open, you'll be able to see how it goes together. All right, we have sewn all of our pieces together. Also remember, when you go to sew these triangles together, they're biased, so you want to be really ginger with them. Don't tug them or pull them. We've sewn our units together. Now we're going to, remember I said opposite units. We're going to put our opposite units together, just like so. Oh, no, we're not. They go like that. And like this. This has been a very confusing one. I know some of you are out there going, huh? But anyway, we're going to put them together just like that with our triangles pointed out and our corner points, bias points in. And we're going to stitch it together like a 4-patch, and it's going to fit. Once you trim it, you can see my trimmings are over here. Once you trim it down, it'll match completely. They'll finish at 3.5. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this one, and then we'll talk about exactly why this was so ungodly confusing. I was trying to make an easy block, or a difficult block a little bit more easy, but it does come with some challenges, so we'll walk that through. So let me go ahead and finish this one, finish the block, and we'll come back and talk about it. All right, friends, we actually got them together. So here's our original end of the day block that I did with the 4 colors. And I did manage to figure out a method of getting all the blocks together so that they work sort of in the same way. We don't have any little solid squares at the end. Here they are, and there happens to be 3 of them. So this is block 83, 84, and 85. Now, I know this is probably was probably a little bit confusing, and you're like, why would you change? I can cut a rectangle. I can use the 45-degree line on my ruler to cut the end off of it. Why would you make it this difficult? And the answer is I wanted to make it actually simple for you. I didn't want you to have to worry about cutting on the bias, except when you're cutting your units apart. And also, it's a skill building technique. So for me, when I looked at it, I'm like, oh yeah, we can totally do it. We can cut it at 2 different angles. And if we use 4 fabrics, we can mix it up and it'll look similar to the block that we're trying to do. Now, I knew that I was going to need like half of the parts of those 4 units, and that I would need to make 8 of them in order to be able to put 2 blocks together. And I really didn't want 2 blocks exactly the same. I'm okay with them being somewhat in the same colorway, but I didn't want them exactly the same. So first thing is, if you want to make all of your colors the same and you want to make a 2-color block, then go ahead and cut enough parts for 2 blocks. It'll be super simple, super easy. If you want to make 1 block, cut enough parts to make 4 colors, and you'll be able to fix that. And so in order to make a 4-color, you need to choose 4 colors, and you need 2 rectangles of each color that are 2 1/4 by 4 inches. If you're going to do this guy, and you want to do it as a 2-color version, then you're going to need 2 colors, 8 rectangles each that are 2 1/4 by 4 inches. So that should solve that problem. The other reason that I did it this way is because being able to cut units in opposite angles is actually a great skill to learn. And if you want to look down here, I'll show you one of the things that we did this spring that will make this all make sense. So this spring, my retreaters made this color wheel quilt table runner. And if you notice, it's got some border parts to it. Now, I didn't do mine exactly the way she did, but you see I have these 2 border prints. This is the border print that I used to pick all the other colors for this project. So you can see in here I have olive and blue and pink and all that. Okay, so rather than doing all different colors, I chose one solid color that would, repeat itself throughout the quilt. You can see it here and here. And then I chose all my other colors from the border print. Now, if you look at the border print, do you see how one way the border print goes this way and then it angles and goes the other way? And so are the strip set pieces angling in 2 different ways. And in order to make that work, we have to cut 2 units in this direction and 2 units in this direction. And the pattern calls for that. So turned out really great, it fits. But you can see if you're not used to putting angles in two different directions, you can get confused. So this is a handy skill to have because sometimes you're gonna have patterns that are really cool that you don't wanna miss out on because you don't know how to follow the instructions to cut one way and another way. So for this block, you're gonna take, for your four color piece where you make one block, this guy, oops, right here, you're gonna take 2 units that are the same and cut them in one direction, and 2 units that are the same, cut them in the other direction. The other cautionary tale that I have for you is that I want you to assign a dark. So with a 2 color, it's very easy. You assign a dark, right? In this case, I had this light, this pale, very pale green with print, and then I had a slightly darker. So I would assign that as the dark. So I will create my units with my rectangles, a light and a dark, and then I will assign the dark, okay, whether they're both the same or not. You just make one a dark. And you're gonna put that one on the bottom of the unit. So you'll have light at the top and dark at the bottom, and you're gonna press your seams towards the dark. So if you're not using a light and dark and they're just 2 medium prints or 2 light prints, whatever, you can just assign one of those the bottom of the rectangle on the bottom versus the rectangle on the top. And then when you put your stacks together, put your dark or your bottom rectangles on the bottom, press all of your seams towards that way. And the reason I'm telling you to do that is because then when you go to sew your angles together, when you get to this little point right here where this triangle and this triangle have to meet, you'll be able to nest those seams, okay? And then you'll have 3 points that you'll be able to measure them. When you go to sew your triangles together, you can match them from this point and also from that center point. And that will help keep them straight and keep them even and make sure all of your triangles meet, okay? So those are my little handy steps for building this block. And then another little thing is, I don't know if you've noticed, but all of the 100 blocks behind me, we have our So Colorful color wheel up here right now. We don't have any blocks up. Why is that? Well, the next video I'm gonna have, we're gonna do sort of a check-in point with how the quilt is going, because at the beginning of this, it was just make 100 blocks, and you're probably wondering, how is she putting all of these colors together? Well, I have done a video on where we are now, because we're getting, well, this is 83, 84, and 85. So we have 85 blocks done of our 100. So we're getting very close to putting this together. And by the end of December, I want to have a finished quilt for you to see. So I have to start thinking about how I'm going to put it together. Well, that's a lot of blocks, 80 blocks. They don't necessarily fit up here on the design wall anymore. So I had to put them on a bigger design wall. So the next video we're going to post, I'm going to give you a little sneak peek of the process, what was in my head when we started this, how I'm going to go about coming up with a design, and also what its finished look like, what direction you can go in with yours, and some organization, because that's really important to me. And I've got to get this done by the end of the year, so we're running up on that time. So I thought, just based on some of the comments that I've heard, that maybe you'd like to see a little sneak peek of how we're going to finish this before we keep on with the rest of our blocks. So stay tuned. If you love this video or love this series, make sure you're liking and subscribing. Hit a thumbs up on the video. Remember, there's a whole playlist. If you're just finding us now, which a lot of people do, or finding us now that we're in our 70s and 80s blocks, there is a playlist right there on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/cabinquilters. You can go to the 100 Blocks in 2025 playlist. They are all listed in order. You can watch every single one. Make sure you subscribe to get notified when there's new videos. Hit a like and a thumbs up to help the algorithm find you, to bring more content out there, or to share it with friends of yours. And if you're using the mobile app, click that hype button for me. You get to hype 3 different small channels a week, and it's really, really helpful to our channel for finding new viewers and helping to support the channel. So consider hitting that hype button as well. And until next time, I'll see you later. I'll see you on the web at cabinquilters.com, and I'll see you in the next one.